This is the Cupra Born, and it's the more angry, industrial, sporty version of the Volkswagen ID.3. Since the brand was launched back in 2014, Cupra has always incorporated this copper colour throughout its whole brand identity and a lot of the vehicles that they've made. And the Born is no different. We've got the brand logo up here, finished in copper, got the brand word, again, finished in copper, and then down here we have got this quite aggressive splitter, again, finished in copper. I think when that's used in conjunction with this grey colour here, the black on this grille section, and the copper on there, it does work really, really well together and creates this nice, unique look. Elsewhere, I think Cupra has done a good job in trying to differentiate itself between the ID.3. The front end of the Born looks really, really different to the Volkswagen version. The VW version looks a bit more plain, a bit more sensible, a bit more traditional, whereas this looks very, very unique, really. Quite aggressive. Got a nice black section down here, gloss black. Got these fins down here, which look quite nice. And the headlights themselves are quite recessed behind this sort of eyelid shape. And this section here does look very similar to the Leon. So I think the brand sort of cohesiveness has come through, really. I think it looks quite good. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Just like the VW ID.3, the design of the Cupra Born is very much a cab forward design. So where you sit is quite far forward in terms of the vehicle, and we do have quite a short bonnet. Obviously this doesn't have a petrol or diesel engine. It's been designed from the ground up to be an electric vehicle, so where you sit is nice and far forward. Got a nice lot of glass here. On this V2 version you do get tinted rear windows as standard. There's no sunroof, and you do have this nice glass piece here with a triangle shape. All pretty good, really. Now down here we have got a interesting design for the side skirts, nice sort of indentation here, looks quite interesting. And this colour, by the way, is one of the free options, and it's called Vapor Grey. Now in terms of where this car sits in the market, you're looking at things like the MG4 that might be a similar size, also the BYD Dolphin, and the brand new Kia EV3, which I reviewed recently on the channel. There's a link in the description down below, or up there if you want to check that video out. Now this Cupra Born is the V2, and it sits at 4,324mm long. It's 1,809mm wide, and in terms of height here, it's 1,540. So it sits nicely in this small hatchback, sort of medium-sized hatchback space in terms of the EV market. Before we go any further, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Interface Cars YouTube channel. There's lots of content coming on a regular basis, such as new car reviews like this one, infotainment walkthroughs, and EV charging guides. Thank you. You actually have the choice between two different batteries on the Cupra Born. That's either 59 or 79 kilowatt hours, and you can choose the battery type on nearly every single trim level. The only one that has no choice is the top spec VZ, which is the hot hatch version of the Born. I can only get that one with the 79 kilowatt hour battery version. The one I have here today is the 59 kilowatt hour version on the V2 trim. Now charging is actually pretty impressive on paper. We have a dual CCS2 combo port, DC is up to 165 kilowatts, and AC is up to 11 kilowatts. The only downside is that the heat pump does not come as standard, and it costs £970. Around the back, the design is just as sporty and aggressive as the front, really. Very different when you look in contrast to the ID.3. They're very, very different cars, really. Now this one has quite a bit going on around the back. We've got a pretty large rear spoiler here, heavily tinted rear window, a rear wiper as well, which is rare to see in 2025, a pretty large rear LED light bar, and the rear lights themselves are LED as standard on every trim of the Cupra Born, which is good to see. Got some Cupra branding down here, and then down at the very bottom we've got some motorsport inspired fins, which look quite cool, really. I quite like those. We haven't got a gloss black diffuser. Instead it is this sort of green grey, nice metallic colour, and I think that works quite well, breaks up the design quite nicely without being that gloss black which a lot of cars go for. This particular trim of the Cupra Born doesn't have a 360-degree camera system. Instead we do have some rear parking sensors and one rear camera, and in my testing this week that hasn't been an issue at all. In the middle here we've got the Cupra brand spelled out in letters, and we've got the flipping badge, which when you open it reveals the boot space. Now when I saw this for the first time the other day, I was pretty stunned at how large this space is. It's 385 litres, and I think that's going to be perfectly fine for a lot of families. really wide opening here. The only little downside really is the load lip height. There's a fair bit of space there between the floor of the boot and the opening here. I think for some people anyway, getting suitcases in and out of this car might be a little bit of a challenge, but I think overall it's absolutely fine. We've got a lot of tie down points here, a 12-volt socket for powering a fridge or something else you want to power. And we have got a bag full of charging cables. So we've got a granny charger and a Type 2 connector. Now, one weird thing is the fact that the Born is a rear drive car, and we have got basically no space underneath there. It's all completely flat. Sort of underneath there is some of the battery technology, inverters, but also the rear drive motor. There is a small amount of space here, so this looks like a subwoofer, and we have got a first aid kit and some tow wire equipment and the lock and wheel nuts. All pretty good. If you fold these seats down, that does extend to 1,267 litres. Now, with those seats folded down, you do get a lot more space, obviously, but there are some weird things with it. So first of all, you can see that the floor of the boot doesn't line up correctly with the back of the seats, and that means you haven't got a completely flat load area. It can be a little bit of a challenge with suitcases and that sort of stuff. Now, one of the main reasons for that is that the seats themselves, the rear bench, doesn't sit completely flat. It is angled back a little bit, and that has a knock-on effect on where the backs of the seat do sit. So that could be fixed in a future version, but that is essentially what it is with this car, really. I do think that there's a good amount of space for family trips or whatever, and the fact that they do fold in a 60-40 arrangement is pretty good as well. Now, the bonnet itself is relatively short, really, not that deep in comparison to a combustion car, for example. There's actually no storage underneath here, which is a tad disappointing, because the Cupra Born is, well, it's rear-wheel drive only, so I do think they could have put some storage underneath here, but everything in here is pretty well laid out. We've got the fuse box here, 12-volt battery, washer fluid top-up, coolant systems there, and brake fluid as well. I think it's all pretty well laid out, but I think they could have made some space for your charging cables, considering in the back there isn't any underfloor storage, only enough room for that subwoofer and your first aid kit. On this particular V2 trim, there isn't any keyless entry. That is instead reserved for the top spec VZ trim, although it can be spec'd for £540 included with the tech pack. This also adds a wireless phone charger for the interior. Just like the exterior, I think inside that Cupra have done a really good job in trying to make this feel quite unique and different when you compare it to the ID.3, for example. Lots of really nice materials. Now, I'm just going to refer to my notes because it's quite a hard word to pronounce. These seats on this V2 trim are called Sea Quail, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's basically a plastic yarn that's made out of recycled plastic from the Mediterranean Sea. And I did notice they do feel nice and hard wearing, but also quite soft and good quality. Other trim levels, including the VZ, so the V3 and VZ, get Dyna Mica microfiber fabric. It's a very good quality material, and I can see this yarn material lasting a very long time. It does feel really quite good quality. The seats also are really nice and supportive. They're this one-piece design, kind of bucket seat sort of affair with a hole in the middle. And you get a comfortable position very easily. It's really quite comfortable. So I think they've done a good job there. Driving position wise, you can see lots out the front here. The only thing I will notice is that these pillars here, the A pillars, are quite chunky. They're not so wide on this aspect, but they are really quite deep. And that creates a bit of a blind spot. Very similar on the ID.3, and also this kind of design here is on the ID Buzz as well, but that vehicle doesn't have quite the same issue because you are sitting a bit higher up and a bit more forward. Whereas I have noticed in certain occasions on different junctions and things that these A-pillars can get in the way somewhat when trying to manoeuvre out those junctions. The steering wheel itself can be adjusted quite easily, so in and out quite far, up and down as well. And what's nice also is that, like the ID.3 and other VW products, is that the digital driver's display here is actually attached to the steering column. So no matter where you put this steering wheel, you can still always see pretty much all of the screen. Only in that position there do you cut off some of it, but then you might be a little bit too high up for it. So it really quite good, really, in terms of the whole ergonomic layout, where you sit, it's all quite comfortable. On this wheel here, we've got loads and loads of buttons. Just behind the wheel, we've got these two stalks. The one on the right is responsible for changing gears. So you've got neutral, reverse, drive and B. and then you just turn that around like that, and that changes your gear for you, all quite good quality. And we've got the park brake, park button on the end there. This left stalk here is responsible for the lights, indicators, and the wipers, and we do have a rear wiper on the Cupra Born as well. So indicators there, got the rear wiper and the wash, the front wipers here, and also your high beams as well. Again, all a really good quality tactile feeling for a lot of the physical buttons. We've got some buttons down here for the drive mode, and also your Cupra button, which gives you e-boost as well. The only problem really on the wheel is the haptic buttons. VW have addressed this issue with the new Golf, but they haven't, or Cupra anyway, haven't addressed the problem with this vehicle. There's a lot of haptic buttons here. So you've got the volume here, you've got the cruise, we've got the tracks over here, and this buttons here, they control the heads-up display and the driver's display. The haptic buttons themselves are fine to use, not ideal. I would prefer some buttons. But the only problem occurs when you hold the wheel like that at 9 and 3, the fatty bit on your finger seems to rest on these two buttons. And you either control the volume with that bit of your finger, or you end up touching this button here, which controls the heads-up display and gives a little audible chime. Just a bit of a strange one. You could hold the wheel like that at 10 and 2, but the whole wheel is like designed around holding the wheel like that. So that is a bit of a weird one, and something you might not, well, something you won't actually run into if you have a physical buttons on your steering wheel. That haptic button arrangement does also extend to the driver's door here. Now I've got some buttons. You can lock the doors, you can control the mirrors, heated mirrors, and you can fold the mirrors in. We've got some haptic buttons here for locking the doors, and a haptic button to lock the windows. And the issue with this is that you might want to do some of these things while driving, like lock the windows if your kids are messing about in the back seat. The problem with making this haptic is that you've lost that instant tactility to let your brain know that you've done something. You've instead got to wait for a beep if you hear it, or you've got to wait for the little light. And it takes your eyes off the road, which is just dangerous. It's the same problem with locking the doors. Yes, you've got that sound that you can hear when the doors lock, but again, you've got to look for a light to let you know which one's which. Whereas with a rocker switch, like in most older VWs, you've got the same sort of thing, or most older VW Group products. It's the same arrangement with the wheel for adjusting the mirrors and adjusting the heated mirrors as well. It's got the same level of resistance no matter which option you select. So they're off completely, left, right. And that means, again, you've got to take your eyes off the road to adjust these controls. In my VW Up, for example, you've got the same sort of wheel for controlling the mirrors, but there are levels of resistance to let you know you're doing whichever one. And the fact that it feels exactly the same and you're relying on a little orange light to let you know which one's selected, again, is just really, really weird. And again, this point has been brought up so many times in reviews of these vehicles, is the little control for the rear windows. There's times you want to wind down the window, and there's only two switches. You've got to select the rear one, and it doesn't always select properly. Very, very odd. Apart from that, the materials on the door card are really good quality. We've got some hard plastic, nice and textured in the door bin itself, really quite large. Got some microfiber where your arm goes, some half soft plastic, half hard plastic on the door here, and some ambient lighting. On the dash, this whole section is really quite soft and quite suede-y in its effect. Nice some copper stitching all around there as well, and some copper accents around the side here. I'm going to promise I'll stop whinging about haptics in a second, but we've got more haptics for the lights here. This one I don't mind at all, because you just leave the lights on auto and it does everything else for you. You haven't got that old rocker you had on older VW Group products. Yeah, you have got some options in here to max defrost the windscreen and do the fog lights, but in all honesty, that's fine. I do wish that they would put the physical wheels back in, but that's the least of the issues with the haptic controls, really. Down in the middle, we have got more sort of suede, rubbery material, which is really nice to hold and touch. We've got a nice slider here to hide all of the stuff away. Nice copper accents again. Got some air vents as well here, and a physical button to turn on the hazard lights. Below that tray, we have got 2 decent sized cup holders and a large area here for storing various bits and pieces. The cup holders themselves are a nice shape and they do hold large cups. Down here, we've got a phone storage area, and on different trim levels, this will actually be your wireless phone charging pad. And we have got some more microfiber on the center console lid here. Nice lot of resistance in that hinge there, feels good quality. And then we have got 2 USB-C ports, one for data pass-through for the Apple CarPlay system, and one for charging devices. All quite nice and got good quality and really quite sturdy, really. Now, one weird thing here is the size of the glove box. This glove box action feels really good quality, like most of the stuff on this vehicle, but due to the way that the company set the vehicle up, this right-hand drive model has the fuse box on the left-hand side, which means the glove box is about half the size it really should be. It's only really big enough to hold the wallet you get and paperwork and bits and pieces. Not really that useful, but there is a little card storage area there for like parking tickets or something along those lines. The main centerpiece in the interior is this 12.9-inch infotainment screen. It's the same kind of thing you'll find in the ID.3, the new Golf, all the various similar products that are coming out of the VW group at the moment. This is actually okay. We have got the haptic buttons for the slider controls for the volume here, the temperature, but realistically, this is actually, again, it's fine. There are worse systems out there. And it is all really quite responsive and easy to use. The climate control settings here are always static. So no matter if you're an Apple CarPlay, for example, you'll always have access to these climate control settings and your heating, and it actually is fine. I've got volume control on the wheel here. You can tap that to turn the temperature up and down, and it does all sync between the driver and that side. And yeah, it's absolutely fine. And at least we do have some common actions here, like the recirculation, the temperature, and the heated seats as well, all quite fine. If you want a full in-depth look at this infotainment screen and how to use it, there's a link in the top right corner or the description down below, where I take a look at everything you need to know about this infotainment screen and also the My Cupra app. Just looking up here, we have got 2 LED lights, which you can turn on or off individually, and a all lights option there. And there are some lights in the back seats as well, and some different status LEDs as well, and a microphone up there, and an SOS button. For the sun visors, they do feel standard VW Group sort of stuff, really. LED light in the roof, and we have got a little mirror to check yourself out. All pretty good quality, really. I'm quite impressed with the interior in the Cupra Born. Loads of room in the back seats, actually. Really quite impressive. We've got a fully flat floor because this is a bespoke electric vehicle. Lots of room for my feet here. Loads of room underneath the driver's seat. Good amount of headroom, actually, really, and a good amount of knee room as well. Now, sometimes in the back of vehicles, it can feel a tad claustrophobic, especially with these bucket seats, but it's completely fine. The bucket seats themselves aren't obnoxiously wide or anything, and they're not too deep either. I mean, I can see a lot around the sort of the interior, really, and we have got those pass-through holes as well. Also, you might notice on camera, but this door card here is really nice and low down. A lot of cars, the passengers in the back end up sitting quite low down anyway, and then you just have a really high door card, whereas in the Born, it's actually really quite low down. There's a lot of glass here, and you can see a lot out the back. It's really quite nice and open and feels quite airy, even without a sunroof. Door card itself is hard plastic. It's quite nice and textured, doesn't feel cheap at all. Got the electric window switches there, some speakers in the doors, decent sized door bins as well, all pretty standard stuff, really. In the middle, no air vents in this plastic section down here. We have got 2 USB-C ports for charging up your devices, all pretty good, really. Got some small pockets in the back of the seats there on both sides. Now, the seats are the same woven material as the front seats, that plastic recycled material, quite nice and durable. And this middle section is like a nice sort of neoprene material, really. It feels really, really good quality and quite soft and premium. We've got 3 seats in the back. These headrests are pretty good size. There's no sort of armrest in the middle, no cup holders in the back, which is a little bit disappointing to see. And the seats themselves do angle back quite far, and that does impact the boot space with the seats down because they don't seem to fold completely flat. But when you're sat here, what that does aid is the support for your thighs, because sometimes in electric vehicles your legs can be quite high up like this, and then you just feel like your thighs are just floating in midair, whereas what they've done is tilt the the squab of the seat back a little bit further, so you do sit a little bit more comfortable. And I've got to say, they are quite comfortable rear seats, and the fact you've got quite a lot of leg room is quite handy as well. I can imagine a relatively long journey in here, not feeling too bad at all. So, driving the Cupra Born, what is it like? Well, my first impressions of the day were that it's really, really comfortable. I do get the impression that makes sense that Cupra is the more sporty version of Seat and Volkswagen, and you just naturally expect the ride to be not that good, but actually it really is. It's actually quite good, very, very comfortable. The suspension setup's obviously been done in such a nice way, and there are some different drive modes as well. You've got comfort, range, and once the vehicle is in range mode, it does, yeah, it's really, really quite comfortable and quite relaxing. It doesn't make much sense when you look at the outside and what the Cupra brand was, or the Cupra line was, and kind of is now. It's more sort of sporty, aggressive, industrial focused vehicles. And yeah, it's quite surprising to see that this can obviously be quite sporty if you want it to be. And there is the really quite powerful VZ version of this. But yeah, it's quite good really. We also don't have an outrageous amount of power. We've actually got one drive motor at the back. It's rear-wheel drive. It's making 227 brake horsepower, and we do have 310 newton meters of torque. 0 to 60 is in 6.7 seconds, which doesn't sound that fast on paper, but it is perfectly fine for a majority of people's uses. And there is a pretty normal 99 mile an hour top speed. Now in range mode, the handling doesn't seem to be that impressive. It does seem a little bit wallowy, a little bit boaty, which kind of makes sense. It just isn't designed to be as hard focused as the other modes. Now we have got some nice driving modes here. If I put the car in Cupra mode, which is the most aggressive out of all of them, the steering gets heavier, the ride is a little bit less boaty, the steering's more direct. So we'll put it back in range mode here. A little bit delayed when you look at the steering there. If we put it in Cupra mode, just a bit more darty, a bit more aggressive, a bit more direct. Also, if we accelerate, get up to the natural speed limit very, very quickly, and the responsiveness on the throttle pedal is actually it's very immediate. Yeah, very, very good in terms of sort of throttle response in that quite aggressive Cupra mode. Just and you're back on the regen quite quickly. Compare that to the range mode here. A bit more linear in terms of its response, and the regen mode is a bit more relaxed. So it's a nice linear sort of acceleration mode really. Now, I don't know if you'll pick this up on the microphone here, but when you do accelerate and then get back on the regen, there are some nice audible, they're not fake sounds by any means, they're just actual sounds that come from the electric motor, but you get a nice whine from the motor when you are in regen. So when you do accelerate, you get a nice sort of electric sound. Then back on the regen, about 40 mile an hour it happens. There we go. You see that nice sort of electric whine. Gives you a little bit of feedback when most electric cars are really, really quiet actually. And this is a nice bit of audible feedback. Not very loud, but it is a nice little bit of feedback there. Now if we stick this back into Cupra mode, we'll have a look what the handling's like here around some of these corners. So again, the steering is nice and stiff, a bit more darty in terms of response. Acceleration is really, really, really responsive. Because the Born is rear-wheel drive, just like the ID.3, you do get a nice playful handling vibe from the vehicle. Yeah, it's good. And I'm not really braking. I don't know if you can see my feet on the cameras, but I'm just using regen. I'm in B mode, and all I'm doing is using that regen mode to slow myself down. So I'm planning ahead and just using the regen to slow me down. I'm effectively saving electricity doing that as well. Around this corner here. Yeah, it's a little bit squirrely in this Cupra mode. Just it seems a little bit aggressive in terms of that acceleration, but in the right circumstance, it is quite good fun really. So just on a bit of a straight road here. Let's do a quick 0 to 62 test. So I'm complete stop here. I'm in Cupra mode. So 3, 2, 1, go. No real dramas. 40, 50, and then 60. So pretty quick really. Nothing outstandingly fast like a Model 3 Performance for example, but it is yeah, it's pretty quick really. It's sort of hot hatch level stuff really, and that is kind of what Cupra is going for. And if you want something a bit more aggressive, you have got the VZ trim of the Born if you want something a bit more insane. Now, considering the whole personality of this vehicle is a more sporty, aggressive version of an ID.3, you wouldn't really expect that this car would have such impressive range and efficiency really, and that's one of the areas where this car really does shine. The larger battery pack version has 350 miles of range, and this one, 59 kilowatt hours, has 250 miles of range. And for me, it's the efficiency which is incredibly impressive. Cupra themselves quote 3.98 to 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, and during my testing this week I've been getting 4.1 to 4.2 and I haven't been trying. All I've been doing is leaving the car in B mode, so full regen. I've been using the motorway, been driving on B roads like this, and also I've been in the range mode, and I've had the air conditioning on the whole time. So it's not like I've been purposely trying to get this car to be efficient. That just is what it is, and that's quite impressive. So if you are after an efficient hatchback that is quite unique, quite sporty, quite fun to drive, the Cupra Born is it. That's it. It just is quite good at being what it is. It's such a good car. So what do I think of the Cupra Born for 2025? Well, I'm actually really impressed with what the company has done. The design is great. It looks really quite sporty, quite aggressive, a little bit different as well. And there are some nice paint options you can get. And I also do like those wheels. They look quite fancy, really. The interior quality is different enough from the ID.3. It looks like its own thing. The Cupra branding, this coal copper theme, is really nice. I do wish that the whole VW group as a whole would universally adopt physical buttons again. The buttons on the steering wheel are the largest of those issues, and on the driver's door as well. And to be honest, in terms of where the group has come since 2020 with the Golf Mark 8, I do think the infotainment is actually pretty decent, but we have got those slidey controls, which in reality on this car aren't that much of an issue, but it depends on how you use the car. But the main issue is those steering wheel controls. You can accidentally press them with your hand. But overall, I'm actually really impressed, and it's definitely a car to test drive, and I would recommend it. If you like this sort of content, please subscribe to Interface Cars. My name's Alex, and I'll see you again next time.